opportunity, because if you understand the real issue with the lack of credit, you can fix it. So my talk for the rest of today will go along with what crypto is. We're going to take a deep dive into what cryptocurrency really is at the technical and the information economics level. And then I'll explain how we use what cryptocurrency provides in order to fix those credit markets. And then I'd like to leave you guys with a call to action, which is to think about how cryptocurrency can work with your existing businesses to enhance or expand it. Now, let's talk about understanding crypto. Crypto is, in information economics levels, a combinatorial innovation. It is the equivalent of 1 + 1 = 5 because it is more than the sum of the parts. For example, cars are a combinatorial innovation, but it still took 30 years from the first steam engines to widespread adoption with the Model T. We're facing that, and we faced that before with the internet. This is what crypto is. Crypto is in the 1890s equivalent. And to have widespread innovation or widespread adoption, the previous things need to happen. You needed bicycles, which led to roads, and farming equipment, which led to gas distribution in order for cars to be able to be used. Similarly, Bitcoin is a combinatorial innovation, where you take 3 different technologies. You take cryptography, which we've had for a while. You take distributed systems, which have only come to scale in the past 10 years. Well, they've been around for about 20, but they've only come to scale in the past 10 years. And then you take game theory in order to make something that's more than the sum of its parts. Because all these together, the way they work, mean that it solves a very, very difficult math problem. It's called the Byzantine's general problem, where it's very hard to get messages from A to B in a trustworthy way. So how Bitcoin functions is the cryptography secures the proof of work. The reason why it's called blockchain is that one transaction, the previous transaction, forms part of the new transaction, which forms part of the next transaction. So you cannot unravel one transaction without unraveling the rest because they're all dependent on each other's sums. Now that's, at a computer science level, that's a simple checksum, but combining that checksum and then making cryptography secure that checksum across a number of systems and using game theory to incentivize the people securing that checksum means that you can get a message from A to B because everybody will pull along in the same direction. Maybe I went too fast. That's technically accurate. But what you have effectively is, it's like amber. You have a fly and you laminate layers on top of it, and you can't get to the fly without chipping through all the layers. So what this does is that this white paper has meant that you can build further things on top of it with privacy, because now you have a trusted source of information and you can obfuscate or you can secure or encode that source of information. It means that you can transmit value from A to B because it says that A gave B money. And it means that with that trusted source of information, it solves fundamental economics problems in our society. Who gets what, why, when, and for how much. And all that is now available on public blockchains. Now, this is very important. As fintech companies, you guys deal with trusted sources of information. Information affects prices. Is the stock going to go up and down based on the financially reported profits? Is the market going to do better or worse? And it influences economics research. Now, I'd like to just briefly talk about the trusted sources of information, about why having information about who we are and why we are is so important. Because if you think about it, the bank will give you money or extend credit based on who you are. If you are not who you are, you have no access to that money. And that is one of the examples of how we use trusted sources of information and how to prove it. So when a bank calls you up for, are you who you say you are? That is a trusted source of information. And that affects your access to finance. Now let's talk about how we use trust in emerging markets. Now, we have to take a step back to look at the role of credit in developmental economics. With credit, you can see economies change and grow. South Korea was amongst the poorest countries in 1950, and it's one of the top 20 economies today because the government actually made a role with opening up and providing credit to the SME and the chaebol. Similarly, with China, we've seen that happen. I've seen Beijing go from blue skies and very little development in 1991 to a world superpower, and that's in 30 years. And that's what credit and a large population will do. Prosperity is fundamentally tied to credit access in the economy. And in China, the development banks, as well as information from Alibaba, have allowed companies to borrow, lend, and expand. Now, the access to credit in Africa is an old problem. It is in lemon markets, what is called a lemon market. It's called credit in underdeveloped countries. And a lemon market happens for 4 reasons. The first is you have information asymmetry. One party has all the information and the other party doesn't. Next, you have a high cost of discovering the information, what economists call cost of state verification. The next thing is you have an incentive to cheat and no consequences for cheating. And that used to be part of the problem why SMEs would not get loans until you had better reporting, until banks were willing to share information, until there was more accurate information. And we see that played out today across Africa, where there's a $120 billion USD trade finance gap. These are 2014 figures. Necessary consequences of that trade finance gap is that people live lives that are not at optimum, access to goods and services is limited, and access to vital commodities like food and nutrition and all the UN sustainable goals is a net consequence of having trade that doesn't function. And we took a hard look at that. And we said that it's a many-sided problem. There are exporters that don't want to deal with the end importers in Africa. There are financiers that don't want to finance. Ports and customs are tough. Border warehousing, logistics, and marine logistics. And we thought, how can we align all these parties' interests? And what we did was that we came up with a commerce platform where we actually have a trade smart contract that lines up all these parties. So what we do is we use our cryptocurrency token for all these parties to interact. Bill of lading is in our name, so it's secured risk. The importer pays, and then only then does he get the goods. After that, our platform gets paid, the financiers get paid, and the net effect is that over time, we can create a trade history for people. And this means that these merchants, for the first time, have credit scores that they can use to borrow on, not just for soft commodities that we're initially selling to them, but over time, we hope for other people to be able to lend to them, because now you can see that they're good risks. Reliable information in real time is really important because it unlocks lemon markets, for one, which is what we're doing. The next thing we do is we establish self-sovereign credit scores, and we punish cheating. And it's a proven strategy that we've been used in all these what we call platform companies in two-sided markets. The difference is that we want to make sure that information of all the merchants' trade history is in their hands and they reveal it only to parties that they trust. Now, if you look at Airbnb, 10 years ago, none of us would have stayed at a stranger's house because we don't know anything about them, they don't know anything about us. But if you have information, they know where I've stayed, what kind of guest I am. I know everything there is to know about that, from reviews of other people have made about their house, the location, as well as their hospitality. It creates markets that would not otherwise exist. So for Airbnb, you've got amateur hospitality, and Kiwis are especially familiar with what TradeMe can do for a market when you have a platform that provides information for everyone, because now everybody is incentivized to actually perform what they contracted to do. If not, there are consequences. So that's what Google does for advertising, eBay does for goods, and Amazon does for everyone else. There's game theory involved, but I think what I want to talk about now is given the power of cryptocurrency to do mechanism, design, and create information, how you can possibly think about it to get involved or get your company involved in this. So there are 3 ways to get involved. You can do more research, have some skin in the game by actually purchasing cryptocurrency. It's a good time. The market is down. You can discuss about it, and then you can actually invest your time and your money in it. So I'd like to stop here and take questions.